chatter for a minute, but it's 10:01, so it's time to get started. Welcome everybody to Get Organized Challenge number 4, and we are talking about tools this week. And we're not talking about tools like your Xyron or your Cricut, or we're talking about your Cricut machine. We're going to talk about Cricut cartridges. Talking more about embossing folders, dies, stamps, punches, all of those things, right? Big, bulky things that are hard to organize and store so that you can actually remember that you have them and use them. So that's our focus this week, is to get those small tools under control. We're going to start with winners, though, this week. Oh, let me start with what I'm supposed to say in the very beginning. If you're new, welcome. You will see a chat box on the side of the screen. If you have questions, type the word question in all caps. Karen will watch for those and answer those questions if she can. If she can't, she will bring them upstairs at the end of the class, and I'll answer them then. We are on a little bit of a delay depending on where in the world you are. So if, excuse me, if we get to the end and no one's answered your question, it might be because we're already gone. At that point, you can do a couple things. One, you can join our Facebook group, which you should be doing anyway. It's the 2011 Get Organized Challenge group. Ask your question there, or you can email your question to us at customerservice@totally-tiffany.com. Now, after you complete your challenge this week, remember you need to put up your progress post or email in your progress post to that same email address so that you can get into the drawing to win the prize. So this week we have 2 prizes for progress posts, and the first one is going to Angela. I believe it's man, but let me look. Mon Tabor. And she says, my embellishments have been sorted for a while now, but I have realized that in 7 years I have not used about 75% of them. She says she just doesn't use the bulky stuff. So she's going to purge that out, move things around, put her buttons in her sewing box, and use more of what she's got around her. She said this will shrink my storage drastically. So Angela is our first winner, and our second winner is Amanda Cruxton, who says, I emptied 17 boxes of embellishments. And Amanda put up a picture of all the boxes that she emptied and consolidated down. One of the comments in her post is just about how much space packaging takes up, right? So if you can get rid of a bunch of packaging and really streamline your things, and then you're going to take up less space, it's going to be easier to find what you're looking for. So Amanda Cruxton is our second winner. Thanks everybody for putting up your progress posts. I hope you all are taking advantage of your benefit, of your reward too. It's really important to reward yourself when you get something done. We also had, unbeknownst to me, Karen's all over the contest thing, an ugly embellishment contest. And the winner of the ugly embellishment contest, Dawn Gerbeau Thomas. Congratulations, Dawn, for owning some really ugly stickers, right? I guess that's what it is. But they're Karen called them Susian stickers, and so Dawn is our winner there. Let's get right into the challenge. What's our goal? Our goal is to have a way to bring everything together. Stamps, punches, dies, stencils, embossing folders, Cricut cartridges, all that stuff, so that you can find it and you can use it, right? You want to be able to get your hands onto it. There's a lot of challenges. Oh, I do need to tell you this. If you're watching on live stream or on Facebook or wherever you're watching, there's a link to the challenge handout if you want to download that or print it. The links generally have live links in them to products and references that I make throughout the challenge. We update those all the time. And this morning I realized I had kind of changed the names in them, which you're going to hear in a minute. So if you're following along and the names I'm using don't match the names on your handout, it's just because I changed the names this morning. You're going to see what that's all about. Ooh, a little bit of a tangent there. Okay, so the challenge, everything's different shapes and sizes, right? Punches are different than wood stamps, are different than unmounted stamps, embossing folders, stencils, etc. So how do you get all those things together and make them usable and accessible? And there's a couple of ways to do it. I'm going to go back to, this is where the name change comes in. I'm going to go back to those questions I've asked you over and over again. What kind of a crafter are you, right? When it comes to tools, are you Nancy? Not so much. You just have a few things. You're not a big collector. You're not going to buy hundreds of wood stamps or dozens of embossing folders. Or are you Gloria? Got a lot, right? So depending on who you are, that's going to dictate how you organize or how you catalog and store your tools, the tools that we're talking about now. If you are kind of in between, like you don't have a lot of something right now, but you think, yeah, I really love embossing folders, or I'm totally getting into dies, my suggestion to you is to go with the Gloria plan then of cataloging your supplies. So Nancy is somebody who's not a big collector, not going to buy tons of different things. Just here and there, you're going to pick up a wood stamp, or you're going to get an embossing folder that matches a project, but you're not somebody that's constantly buying them. Gloria, you're somebody who loves having all of those things, and you're a collector probably not only of punches, but of embossing folders or dies or all of those things, right? So whoever you are, you're going to keep in mind, and that's how you're going to do things. So Nancy, you're going to integrate things into your 4-section system. You're either going to integrate the items themselves, or you're going to integrate representations of them. And so when I say representations of them, if you have, in Gloria, you are going to create a catalog. So let me not get ahead of myself. Okay, Nancy, representations. This is a wood-mounted stamp. It's here somewhere, right? It is a picture of 5 gift boxes on this wood-mounted stamp. Obviously, if you're using a scrap rack or Ziploc bags or binders, you are not going to be able to fit a wood-mounted stamp into any of those things. Maybe if you're sorting into boxes, maybe your birthday, maybe you have everything in 12 by 12 boxes and you have a birthday section, then you could put this wood-mounted stamp right in there, right? So, but it's not only for birthday, is it? It is for Christmas and graduation and wedding and new baby and birthday and any other opportunity where you might be giving someone a gift, or a gift might be an appropriate icon to use on that page or project, right? So what you want to do is make a representation of that stamp, and I just photocopied it, that's how I got this, and incorporate it into every place that it might go, right? So this is going to go, I'm going to make 6 copies, and I'm going to actually store this stamp. I'm going to write on the impression where that stamp is. So if you are storing your this wood stamp in a box with all your birthday stuff, you're going to write on there it's in birthday, right? We're going to go through a few more other ways, other places to store wood stamps, but for the example of the moment, let's go with that. So, and then you're going to put these representations everywhere. So if I am using a scrap rack, I'm going to put that wood stamp maybe into a stamp store and go bag, or maybe I'm going to store it on a shelf depending on the space that I've got. That's what the representation is going to say. And then this example is going to go in my scrap rack. So I'm going to put an example in birthday. I'm going to put an example in Christmas. I'm going to put an example in baby. I'm going to put an example in wedding. So as I'm flipping through my section, I'm going to see that I have that stamp, and whatever I wrote on it about where it is going to direct me to go and get that stamp and actually use it. One of the really nice things about doing an impression like this, and this was a suggestion from another participant, is to take that example that you have of the stamp, we're just going to do it quickly here, and cut out around the actual stamp itself, right? So then, if you're at an event and you have this example of this stamp in your scrap rack, you don't actually have to take your wood stamps with you, right? You can take this example out of your birthday section. You can lay that sample down on your layout or card or whatever you're working on, work around it, and when you get home, you can actually pull out the stamp, the ink, the embossing powder, the hot heat tool, all the things that you need to do that, so you get the full use of your stamp, but you don't have to haul everything with you if you're not at home, right? So cutting around them, if you're using representations that you can pull in and out of pockets of your scrap rack, or out of a box or whatever kind of tool you're using is a great way to do it. You can do the same thing. We're going to talk about catalogs. You can do the same thing by just using repositionable adhesive and putting this in a catalog, right? It's a lot more work, and if you're using a catalog, you probably have a lot more stamps if you're Gloria instead of Nancy, right? But the idea is, how do I take this one wood stamp and make it something that I remember that I have and I know where to get to it every time, and that's it. You're going to put that example right into whatever section it belongs in, and you are going to do that with everything, whether it's a stencil, embossing folder, an unmounted stamp. One of the nice things about things like stencils and unmounted stamps, here's another example, is that they are smaller, so you can literally put your unmounted stamps, your stencils, and your embossing folders right into your scrap rack or right into whatever other tool you're using. So here's the same thing, another like gift box. So this example would probably be in Christmas or in graduation or something, and it says birthday on there because I'm going to put this in the birthday section of my scrap rack. So I'm going to see this when I'm working on something else where I could use a gift box, and I'm going to know, go look in the birthday section and you'll find that stamp, right? So what you're doing, drawing yourself back, right? We talked about this. This is the same concept, the same idea as when we talked about if you get kits in the mail, right? You want to link that kit back. You don't want to take everything apart and refigure everything out. How can you drive yourself back to that kit? How can you drive yourself back to this stamp or that embossing folder? And it's simply by creating that representation the same way we did with the kits in I think we did that in paper, in the paper crafting thing, right? All right. So Nancy, not so much. That's what you're going to do, right? You're just going to create those representations and you're going to put things right into the categories where they belong. Unless, of course, you have something like a punch or a wood-mounted stamp, and then you're going to decide where you're going to display those. And at the end of class, I'll go through a few of the things that we offer for storing those types of things, punches and stamps, etc. I'll probably show a few through class too, I guess. All right. Let's talk about Gloria got a lot. What are you going to do? How are you going to get all of these things under control? And creating a catalog, excuse me, creating a catalog is hands down the best possible option, right? So I have a couple of catalog samples here. This is an 8.5 by 11. It's on a 3-ring spinder. Someone else made this for me after I taught a class. She made one for herself, and then she made one for me to use as an example. But you can see as you go through the catalog, whatever it is that you're wanting to use. So this is vacation, right? So I've got stamps, punches. This was before dies. This is an old sample. If I had dies, they would be in there. I've even got a representation of a travel Cricut cartridge, right? So if you're using Cricut cartridges, they do dozens, I mean, some of them probably do hundreds of different things, but you just need to remember that you have it. So this one, this Cricut cartridge happens to be cartridge number 1 on my shelf, but it's all vacation stuff. I just incorporated it right into the vacation section of my catalog, right? So the goal is to take everything that you've got and put them together kind of following along the 4-section system. Well, not kind of, but definitely following along the 4-section system. This is my own catalog. It's kind of a mess. It's been kind of, you know, it takes a lot of wear and tear. But you can see this right here. This is a alphabet punch board, right? This came from the packaging of the alphabet punch board. I want to remember when you invest in something like a punch board, you want to remember that you have it, and then use it, right? So getting those representations, whatever it is. So unmounted stamps, wood-mounted stamps, dies and stamps that coordinate, punches, it doesn't matter what it is. You want to get a representation in there, and then the numbers next to each item are going to tell you where it is. Okay, let me just take a deep breath. Do not allow your brain to shut down at the idea of cataloging 1,000 wood-mounted stamps or 1,000 embossing folders or dies or whatever, right? We're going to work slowly through this process just like we work through everything else. And then you're just going to continue with it. So don't get overwhelmed at the idea of sitting down to create a catalog with how much stuff that you have, because you're going to be able to work through things slowly, just like we've worked through everything else, right? So don't get overwhelmed already. Okay, so what are you going to do? You need to decide about what kind of catalog you're going to use. Are you going to use 12 by 12? Are you going to use 8.5 by 11? My other thing is, if you're a particular, if you like particular brands, you're going to kind of want to do double duty on your catalog. So if I have a tab here, right? Anna Griffin. So I have all my Anna Griffin embossing folders together under Anna Griffin, but I also have those embossing folders represented under borders and backgrounds, right? So I'm going to see them in two places. So as you're deciding how to create your catalog, if you have particular brands or designers that you like, you may want to do double duty with not only putting those things in the theme or category, but also creating a section of your catalog that is everything that you have by that designer. Tim Holtz, if you're a big fan of Tim Holtz, he has a very unique style. You might want to keep your stamps and your embossing folders and all the things that are Tim Holtz together in one section, as well as put them through whatever other categories they might belong in. You'll see that in a moment. All right, so you can use 12 by 12 or you can use 8.5 by 11. Before you get started creating your catalog, you need to decide where you're going to store your tools, right? So what happens, let's talk about why we're creating a catalog and why I'm encouraging you to number your things instead of keeping them together by theme. So the common practice would be that I have this set of drawers, and this is all my wood stamps, and I'm going to have all my baby stamps in the top drawer, then my beach stamps, and then my birthday stamps, right? So they're all organized by theme. The problem with that is, if your beach stamp drawer is full and you get a new beach stamp, you have to rearrange baby or rearrange birthday in order to work that beach stamp in, right? So you're constantly moving things around. If you have all of your stamps organized on shelves by theme, and again, that shelf is full, but you get another stamp, you got to move everything around, right? If you use a catalog, that's not the case because you're giving things a number. So instead of those drawers being baby, beach, birthday, those drawers are numbered 1 through 50, 51 through 76, 77 through 102, right? Then you get a new stamp, whatever it is, you're going to take that stamp and go, oh, this is a beach stamp. I'm going to stamp it in beach. Maybe it's a beach ball. So you think, oh, that might work in baby, might work in summer, might work in sports. So you're going to stamp it out in 3 or 4 places. Your last stamp is number 102. This stamp becomes number 103. It goes into that drawer. The drawer now is, 77 to 103. And when you're flipping through your catalog, what am I going to put on this beach page? Oh, beach stamp 103. You're just going to go to that drawer, pull out beach stamp number 103, right? Yeah. So it works. It's very simple. It's simple to add things in, and you don't have to start. You can start anywhere. So if you said, I'm just going to catalog my stamps as I use them, you could do that just as you use your stamps. You don't even have to, well, you do have to because you're in the challenge and you're going to have to follow the program this week and get some of that done. But don't get overwhelmed with it, because every time you add something new or every time you use something, it can get incorporated easily into your catalog. Now, and you're going to do it with everything. Wood stamps, dies, embossing folders, all of those things, right? I got to catch up with myself here. So, how are you going to catalog different things? Here's a few tips and tricks. Embossing folders, right? When I first started my embossing folder catalog, I was going to run every embossing folder through my Grand Caliber and get a negative and a positive impression. And I found out that was going to take a ton of time. Different embossing folders, different shims, different kinds of paper, different impressions, all that stuff. So what I did was I went out and bought a box of color crayons, and I just did rubbings of each embossing folder, right? So it was, I divided my 12 by 12 paper. You can see I gridded it out. So I don't have the whole embossing folder, and that's going to be up to you, whatever you're comfortable with in terms of creating that impression. whether you need the whole thing or just a little bit of an example. And then that number is going to drive me back. So right here, if I say, oh, this embossing folder is labeled F12, right? Whether you've got your embossing folders stored, go gadget arms, in your scrap rack, that number is going to take you to your scrap rack. In this case, it's F12. This is my box of embossing folders, F12 to F26. So I know, and this came up a couple weeks ago, what's on the shelf behind you. Let me just take a little breather here. So if I wasn't in the business that I'm in, and if I wasn't sharing different types of examples of how to organize your supplies, all of these would be most likely in my scrap rack, right? I would consolidate as much things, my unmounted stamps, my dies, my embossing folders would all be probably in my scrap rack. So for whatever reason, some people don't have a scrap rack. Some people can't have a big enough scrap rack to hold all of their things. Some people craft in different ways, and we make all of these different tools. So I got asked a couple weeks ago, why do you have all those boxes on your shelf? Isn't your philosophy to sort of combine and conquer? And my personal philosophy absolutely is that, but everybody doesn't have the same kind of space. Everybody doesn't craft the same way. So I'm showing you multiple examples for how to do it. So in this situation, F12, this is a 4x6 fab file. On the side it says embossing folders. And then inside, right, there it is. There's that embossing folder, F12. I know exactly where to go to get it. I know exactly where to put it away. You can write right on your embossing folder to give it that number. These are, I know you guys get tired of seeing these. These are shut your flap sticky tabs, right? You can use those as well if you don't want to write on your embossing folders. Another little tip here, a little mistake and a tip I'll share with you. This is the image off the package for the embossing folder, right? Because embossing folders, it's hard to really tell what their design is going to look like because they all look the same. They're all this kind of white, translucent white plastic. So I just cut the picture off the packaging, ran it through my Xyron and turned it into a sticker and just stuck it right onto the embossing folder so I can clearly see what that pattern looks like. And this works great as long as what you're cutting off the packaging is just paper, right? If what you're cutting off the packaging is cardboard or paperboard, it's gonna, and you like this one, and you paste it on there. When you run this through your embossing machine, you're going to have a big flat square with no pattern where that cardboard was because the machine can't press into the paper, right? So in that case, so this one is just hinged on with a piece of tape. So when I run it through a machine, I can just lay it flat on the machine, lay this back, run that through the through my grand caliber, whatever you're using, and get the impression, right, and then flip this back around to be able to see it. But it's super easy with your labels, and it's easy to put it away, easy to know exactly where it goes. So, and it would be the same thing. If I had these in a flip and storage page in my scrap rack, the number on it would be the embossing folder, flip and storage page 1 or whatever it is, and it would take me back there. So whatever it is that you're noting on your catalog is just going to take you directly back to whatever tool it is that you're looking for, right? So if I'm looking for, let's go to birthday. Did I already skip it? If I'm looking for a particular birthday, where is it? Oh, I'll have to skip to something else. Maybe I should put on my glasses. That might help. We'll go to shapes. Shapes is a question I get a lot of, right? Shapes. So here are a bunch of different punches, and the punches are labeled with a number, and the number on the punches relates to where they're stored. So this punch is number 51. So in order to find this, I'm going to go to the punch bag on my shelf that's labeled whatever includes 51, and I'm going to see that there. Here's another little trick about this. When you look at things like squares and circles, you can see that I've written under them the dimensions of that, right? So if you're looking for a 1/2 inch circle and you have a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, a 3/4 inch, and a 1 inch circle punch, it's easy to know which one it is, because if 51 is if you're looking for 1.5 inch square, you know that 51 is in fact the 1.5 inch square. You just have to go and pull that one. So for things where the dimensions are going to be important, like squares and circles, you know, things that come in that you might have multiples of, go ahead and add that dimension right to your catalog while you're working on it. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it is. Again, I'm just going to encourage you. Stamps, punches, dies, embossing folders, right? This is hard for people to get their brain around because we've been told keep your embossing folders separate from your dies, separate from your punches, right? But your catalog is going to be everything together following that 4-section system. So you want to see that you have birthday dies and birthday stamps and birthday punches when you're looking for birthday ideas and birthday materials, right? You want to see all of that. One question I regularly get is, why do you have your catalog all together? Why don't you have all your birthday things for your catalog like at the front of your birthday section in your scrap rack, and all your travel things at the front of your travel section? And I know some people do too. They do a big catalog and then they do catalogs that go in each section. For me, I just put my catalog in the center of my scrap rack so it's, you know, visible and it's accessible. The reason I don't take it apart and put each section with the other sections is because when I get something new, when I want to add something to my catalog, I'm going to add it in multiple places, right? So the gift box thing, if that was a die or a stamp or a punch, I would want to put it in multiple places in my catalog, and in that case, I would have to flip through my scrap rack to multiple sections to do it, right? So it's kind of a trade-off. But it is easy to just go to the center section, flip to birthday, and see all the birthday things that I've got and find out where they are. The other thing is I can take my whole catalog with me when I either go to a craft event or even if I'm shopping. So if you're a stamp junkie, you probably have lots and lots of stamps. You may have 50 beach stamps, right? If you go to a stamp event and you're able to take your catalog and they're selling beach stamps, you can go to your beach section and go, okay, I already have 3 beach balls and 12 starfish. I think I'm going to get the umbrella and the bucket instead of another beach ball or another starfish, right? Or you may say, hey, I have an umbrella. I need a bucket and a ball that are going to match the size and dimensions. So you can see everything while you're shopping, as well as having easy access to it when you're at home. So a catalog is really the way to go. And again, you want to incorporate everything into it that you can, so that when you're looking at that particular category, you can see it. So challenges, I already brought up things like borders and backgrounds, right? These are all really generic background kinds of things, right? Oh, here's birthday. Look, I have half my pages around the back. Glasses would be good. Okay, so these are all really generic. Some of them, like this right here, looks like diamond plate. So I would probably also put that rubbing of the diamond plate into the section that I have that's boy stuff, like motorcycles and cars and that kind of thing. I would probably also put that in that section. But it's definitely more of a background, right? So borders and backgrounds I put all together. These are embossing folder borders, right? These are die borders, right? So it doesn't matter that they're different types of products. They're all going to be grouped together in your catalog so you can find them and you can use them. All right, so how do we do it? That's the big question. How do we start the process? Now, one of the things about having done all this stuff is that I have made a lot of mistakes, right? I have done a lot of things the hard way. My girlfriend Aileen used to call it the skinny, bloody lip method of getting things done, right? So I've figured a lot of stuff out, and that's, I guess, one of the advantages to coming to class is that I can share with you what things were difficult. So when we talk about wood-mounted stamps, first let's talk for a minute about consolidating things. If you can consolidate things, so these are Stampin' Up! Stamps. Well, they're not anymore, but this is how I used to store my Stampin' Up! Stamps, right? I labeled them, right? And I put them in my catalog, but I had these big, bulky boxes of stamps. And the problem with these wood stamp things is they don't stand up on their own. So you see a lot of pictures on the group and on the web of people that have these kinds of clamshell type things, and they're just like piled up in a cabinet or dumped into a big tote because they don't stack neatly. They're all different sizes and they don't stand up like a book, right? So I put mine in this basket and I labeled the top and I made a catalog, and I knew if I was looking for Stampin' Up! #1, it was going to be in this basket. Well, one thing that doesn't address is that this is a whimsical alphabet uppercase. This is a whimsical alphabet lowercase. And this is whimsical alphabet numbers. So by having them, in this case they were all in the same basket, but by having them scattered around, you might not even remember that you have upper, lowercase, and numbers of that particular alphabet, right? So one of the things about sort of changing up your storage tools is that you want to choose tools where if you do have things like that, you can try to get them all together in one place. So this is upper and lowercase whimsical alphabet and numbers all in one. This is our double-sided stamp bag. For those of you who haven't seen it, kind of the beauty of the stamp bags is that they have this pull-out tray, so you can get to the stamps at the bottom. You can pull the whole tray out and then get to what you need. But the other thing is, now I can put this on my shelf and I can go vertical with my stamps and I can create a library that'll stand up across a shelf, right? So whatever it is that I've got, I can stack those bags across and label them on the side, and now I've got a library of all my stamps. So, well, this one says Woody's 1 through 22, right? So if I looked in my catalog and I saw a stamp that was number 20 in the catalog, I know I would go to this bag and pull that out, okay? So let's talk about, though, with your tools, loading things, whatever tool it is that you choose. My advice to you is to load the tool first. So if you have all your stamps, right, I loaded all those stamps in there first, and that way I knew what was going to fit in there, because I don't want to go and number stamps. So if I numbered this stamp, so this bag is 1 through 22, right? It has 1 through 22. If I had thought, oh, I'm going to do, this is going to be number 19, it wouldn't have fit in there. I wouldn't have been able to get as many stamps in there, right? So the first thing that you want to do is fill your stamp bag, fill your box, if you're using something like this was for punches, fill that first, and then add numbers, and then start cataloging, okay? So that you're going to maximize the space. You're not going to end up like numbering things and then not actually being able to put them in that container because they don't actually all fit together. So, I'm a mess here. So that's the first thing. First, fill your thing, okay? The second thing is, after you fill your thing, take your stamps, can you see in there? And make a photocopy. So you can see I have a black and white copy in the bottom of this. That is those stamps. So obviously, when I move those stamps around, if things shift, it's like a big puzzle, and it's hard to get everything back in to maximize out this space. Well, if you have that insert in the bottom, you're going to know where everything goes. Okay, then you can start numbering them. And so here was the other mistake that I made. I was like, okay, here's stamp number 1. It's a dog stamp. I took the dog stamp. Dog goes in pet. Dog goes in whatever, wherever it goes. And then I gave it a number, and I put it back in the thing, right? But it's hard to remember which ones you've done. So when you're putting them in there, the next tray that I did, I started with all the stamps standing up like this, and then as I cataloged them, I laid them down. So I knew if I walked away from that project, which stamps I had completed and which stamps I hadn't. I didn't have to go back and look. So the sheet of paper in the tray in the bottom kept me organized with everything being fitting into that space. And then as I actually cataloged them, I was able to lay them all down on top of that piece of paper and keep everything organized, but I knew exactly where I was in the process. So even if I pulled a stamp out of numerical order, it didn't matter. If it was laying down, it had been cataloged, and if it was standing up, it hadn't. So think through those kinds of steps as you're putting your things together, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to remember what you've done, where you are in the process. So if you don't have a lot of stamps or a lot of punches, you may be thinking that you want to keep them all together by theme or category. So as an example, this entire bag is full of spring, right? It has Easter and Valentine's Day and kind of generic spring stuff in it, right? Labeled down the side, stamps, Easter, spring. I think my little tab is down at the bottom there, right? So if you're never going to buy any more stamps, then this is workable because you're not going to have to rearrange this when you buy more. But this is full. So if I buy a new Easter stamp and I want to keep it with the rest of the Easter stamps, now I've got to move the Valentine stamp somewhere else, right? This is where a catalog is so much more efficient because you can just use that numbering system regardless of the tool that you're using for storing those things. So the same, you're going to follow the same process for punches, right? So here we go, medium punches, and then they're numbered, right? So you're going to go to the catalog. Oh, that's on my microphone. You're going to find the number, and you're going to come to the medium punch bag with the number and find exactly what you want. It doesn't matter what kind of tool that you're using. So you saw it in the fab file, close to my heart, stamps that come in these little envelopes. I just put a bolder number at the top so it was easier. There's nothing in here actually. All my unmounted stamps are either in my scrap rack but the idea is there, right? That you can just add them in, give them a number, put them in your catalog, and then go to your basket and find whatever tool it is that you're looking for. So there are a lot of different tools that you can use. That's going to depend on your space, how you scrap or card make or mixed media, what you do, where you go. If you go, here's what you can do. This is a flippin' storage binder, right? So same thing, we'll go to the back so it's easy to see. So 6x6 stencils are just in there. I probably shouldn't be showing you this product because it's out of stock, but it'll be back in March, right? But if that's the kind of storage that you have where you need to put things on a shelf like a binder, something like this is going to work as well. You're going to put the number down the side, like stencils 1 through 50 or whatever it is, stamps, you put unmounted stamps, embossing folders, whatever it is, right down the side and on your shelf. So there's a bunch of different tools, but you want to use that cataloging process to organize those things and to store them. And once you get your catalog going, anything new that you bring into your craft room is easy to add into that catalog section. And I think, hang on a second, there was a comment, I probably skipped it, from somebody who took the challenge before, and she said, remember how we talked about setting your scraps aside, like getting scraps that you were going to throw away, that you are purging out of your system. We talked about their entering paper, put them all in one little bin. This is a perfect time to use those scraps, right? So you can use the scraps to make the examples of your punches, or to stamp out examples of your stamps and then add them to your catalog. Along with that, I think it was Jenny who posted this actually. She set up a little organization station in her craft room. So anything that came in that was new, she had a plain black ink pad for stamps. She had scrap paper for punches and dies and that type of thing, all together in one place. So when she brought something new in, it was easy to create whatever she needed to put into her catalog, give it that number, and put it away. So remember, if it's easy, it gets done. If it's simple to do it, you're going to do it. So set up a little organization station. Doesn't have to be much more than, just a small box in your cupboard or whatever, but all the things that you need to add products to your catalog, and then you will actually do it as opposed to creating that pile on the end of your desk. All right. I kind of skipped through my thing here. We talked about fab files. Things like Cricut cartridges. If you still have Cricut cartridges, you can download the image of everything that's on that Cricut cartridge. And I think there's some links in our in the Get Organized Challenge page of there might even be images of those things on the Get Organized Challenge page on Facebook. So if you want to include a representation, I just photocopied the back of the box of my Cricut cartridges and gave each box a number, and then I would know exactly where to go to get that. So I don't see all of the things on that cartridge, but I have a good idea, especially if it's just an alphabet or a theme like birthday or travel. It's easy to just go and get that cartridge and have everything you need right there. So you can just incorporate that right into your catalog as well, right? And then whatever it is, it's going to drive you back. All right, so that's going to wrap up. That is going to wrap up tools, our tools challenge. What is your goal for this week? So you need to catalog. It's a simple goal this week. 20 things a day for the next 7 days. So 140 items over the course of the week. And an item can be one die, one punch, one embossing folder counts as an item, right? So it's going to be easy to find those tools that you need to store your things, to bring those things together, and then start your catalog system, 20 things a day for the next 7 days, right? And remember that you can catalog things as you use them, because if you're not putting things together by theme, if you're working on a soccer page and you use a soccer stamp and you have put 5 stamps in a stamp bag or whatever it is, and then you add that soccer stamp to the stamp bag or put it on the shelf, you can catalog that right in the same moment, right? So if you're using it, catalog it, even though you might not be cataloging at that time, right? Make it easier to bring everything together. I don't hear Karen coming up the stairs with any questions. This challenge generally does have a bunch of questions, so we'll keep an eye on the Get Organized Challenge group in Facebook and make sure that we are answering those questions for you through Facebook. And I spoke too soon. And you can also, of course, email questions. 3 pages. I know. I was thinking, gosh, that's a lot. Okay. Renee says, Petey is in the office today, so he's a little bit surly when people come in. All right, Renee says, if you number your stamps and then have a rule of one thing in, one thing out, and the new one doesn't fit where the one you are replacing was, how do you fit it into the system? If you have a rule of one thing in and one thing out, how are you going to fit that into your system? Because they're not going to fit. Because, I shouldn't say they're not going to fit. Everything but stamps and punches are going to fit in that situation. So you may be able to do something that's a little bit more generic with the numbering. So with punches and stamps, you may say, okay, I'm just going to call this bag 1, right? And I'm not going to number each individual stamp individually. And so if you decided this stamp was going away, now you have a hole in bag 1. And when you buy a stamp that fits that hole, it can go in there. And instead of getting an individual number, it's just labeled bag 1. and you're going to go and look in bag 1 for that, right? So, and that way, whatever space becomes available in whatever storage tool you're using, when you buy something that fits that, it can go into that storage tool as opposed to, and just have a generic number. I mean, obviously, if you're using stamp and punch bags, and this was bag 1, and all of these were represented as just bag 1 instead of an individual number, it's going to take, you're still going to be able to see it, right? It's not like it's so big that you can't see all those punches or all those stamps. So if you are a 1 in, 1 out gal, which I totally admire and think that is an amazing idea, get more generic with the numbers. Everything in this bag is bag 1, and then when you have a hole, you can put the new thing in and label it bag 1. Catherine says, so you got a present stamp or a gizmo tool that can be categorized numerous ways, then you realize you're ditching it. So tips on how others track places to pull their representations. Ooh, that's a great question too, right? So you may want to incorporate that into your catalog, right? So if you have punch number 51, and you're going to do it in 5 places. If you write a note in your catalog, like this is a present, as the example, I put it in birthday, Halloween, Christmas, whatever, right? You can just put that notation next to that stamp or punch or whatever it is, and then okay, I'm getting rid of this punch. I need to pull the sample or the example or cross it off for all of those sections. So if you just make that notation next to the stamp, punch, or die where it is, you'll know where to go and pull those things out. Amy Gibbons, I know we aren't doing pens, but can Tiffany show us her shelf with how she stores her pens? I just got a bunch of new markers and not sure how to store them. Oh. So, markers totally depends on what kind of markers you're using. So if you're using double tip markers, you want to keep them flat, right? So I have switched over. I'm not even sure these are in order. Keep in mind that when I go to a trade show or when I go to HSN or whatever, I'm constantly pulling my things out, right? So I just got back from a trade show. Now I'm going to put everything back on my shelf, and I'm going to try and go. So I only buy markers anymore that have a code on the tip, right? I used to buy Zig. There's nothing wrong with Zig markers or any other brand. It's just that there's no way to know exactly what color it is without writing out the name. We're going to talk about color next week, and you're going to see my color catalog, and I do have a lot of things where I've written out the name, but I'm trying to switch over to keep it as simple as possible. So this is called the Pen and Ink Palace. This is the 9-inch version. We have a 15-inch version that is current. So if you have more, it's longer. Currently available at HSN, and they will be back in stock here. Oh. So I've got 2 of those stacked up. That's what I have going on there. I just have 2 pen and ink palaces stacked up, and I just pulled one out and the other one, so I'm just staggering them back. There's nothing fancy going on there. They're just sitting on top of each other. There is a bigger version, though, which we don't even have here, or it's probably what I would be using, available at HSN. They will be back in stock here end of February. So if you advantage to something like this is, which I was about to say, is if you have all the red markers from, or you think you have all the red markers from Spectrum, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, there's a red number 9, I don't have that, and you buy it, because the Pen and Ink Palace there aren't individual segments for each pen. When you buy a color that goes in the middle, you can just scoot it in there, right? Maybe you have to move a pen up or a pen down at the end, but if you're buying segmented pen storage, whether it's a square one or the long one or a flat one, if you need to put one pen into the section, you have to move every single marker in that thing manually to keep them in order. So keep that in mind as you're choosing storage. Now, you might also choose to keep your pens together in something like a Deborah bag by color. We're going to talk about that next week as well. This is how I keep things. I am on a tangent now, I guess, but I write in color for everything. I mean, I have like this whole shelf is just everything from colored markers to color crayons, right? I almost never ever write anything with a regular pen. I like a lot of color. It doesn't matter what I'm working on. It's funner. It's funner. I'm not sure that's the word. It's more fun to write in color. So I have every different kind of pen, crayon, colored pencil at my fingertips right here, and then I use them up. Use your stuff, ladies. Write in color all the time. Abandon your basic blue and black ballpoint pens. Get yourself a box of these are from Office Depot. These, right? I don't know what brand they're replicating, but right? I just write in color all the time. So keep things out, keep them accessible, write in color. All right, now we'll get back on track. All right. Need ideas for storing my Biggs dies. Cindy says, I need more information on what that is. It's called a Biggs die, B-I-G-Z, so I'm assuming that means it's a big die. Not sure, but if someone can give me more information, I'll answer that. Maybe we'll answer it on Facebook. Could just be a brand. How do you catalog stamps with multi-sayings not related? Okay, so I'm assuming that's like word stamps, like awesome or I don't know, cheers, any of those like words, generic word stamps, or maybe sentiments that are, generally when you look at something like that, cheers, for example. Cheers is appropriate in a lot of different places, but they're pretty defined places, right? New Year's Eve, birthday, congratulations, maybe Christmas, maybe night on the town, maybe wedding. So when you really start to look at those things, your brain will be like, where am I going to use this? What is it most likely, right? But you can also do, what I have in my scrap rack is a section called Words of Wisdom. Do I have it in here too? Yep. Right? So, generic words, right, can just go in the words category. So if you have the word awesome, when you think awesome, what do you think of? You think of your kids, probably, maybe your dog. So you could put a representation of the word awesome in kids, in family, maybe in school, maybe in sports, and then in the words category. So just like your 4-section system in your scrap rack or whatever organization tool you're using, you're going to have some generic words, phrases, and sayings that don't totally fit a category. Most of the time they do though. So like Leanne just said, cheers, right? So cheers sounds really generic, but are you going to use cheers on an Easter page? Not likely. But are you going to use cheers on a New Year's Eve page? That's highly likely, or on a New Year's card or on a birthday card or something. So once you start thinking about the words, they are going to fit into some categories better than other categories, right? But use that words of wisdom section where you can put a representation. And again, you can put a representation. I have some dies that say, like, with all my love, they're for like the top of a card topper dies, right? So with all my love, that could be a birthday card, that could be a Mother's Day card, that could be, Valentine's Day, or, multiple things. So it's going to go in all those things and in just the words category. All right. Karen, you said to number each individual stamp, which doesn't make sense to me. It would be easier for me to number the set and catalog them into various categories in my binder. Okay, so here's the if you're going to keep your whole set of stamps together, like I have this whimsical alphabet set together, right? Then, what's a bad one because it's alphabets? I have a set that's baking things. It's like, it's got a baker and it has a wine bottle and a birthday cake and food. And so kind of the gist of this set is birthday, but it's also going to fit for night out or cooking class or I don't know, whatever, a variety of things, right? So if you, the birthday cake in that group is very specifically birthday. So that's only going to be represented in one category in birthday. So if it has an individual number, you're going to be able to go, oh, that's number, 12 or whatever. But when you go to number 12, if you're using the stamp bags, you're probably going to see all the rest of it. Number 13 is the baker, number 14 is the wine and cheese tray, right? So all those, that whole set is going to be together. So you can do it either way. You could number all the stamps in that set number 12. So you would have, 5 number 12s. And then when you go to that bag, or that whatever storage tool you're using, you're going to see all 12 of them. You can do it either way. Just a matter of having multiple things with this exact same number if you're numbering the whole set with just one number. But again, where are those sets going to work? Okay. Is that bag big enough for creative memory punches? We have 3 different sizes of the punch bags, and I know Karen has. I have a Creative Memories punch, but it is in our trade show samples at the moment, I believe. But the punch packs come in 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and 2 inch depths. So they hold a variety of different sizes. The double-sided stamp bag is not good for punches. When you look at the punch bags, they all have this extra piece of fabric underneath the plastic, right? Because the punches are really heavy. So that adds an extra layer of strength to the handle of the punch bags. The double-sided stamp bags don't have that. So you don't want to double up a double-sided stamp bag with punches because they're too heavy, right? I'm going to talk about product at the end of the show too, but there are 3, 1, 1.5, and 2 inches in the punch bag. And I will look for, I think Karen has some Creative Memories punches, but I also think the Creative Memories punches, no, I don't have anything in here right now. One of the hazards of being me is that I'm constantly gathering up my stuff, putting it into things like this, taking it on the road. So there's a bunch of stuff in the trailer right now because we just did the Idaho Scrapbook Show, which was a ton of fun. If you live in that area and you didn't go, put it on your calendar for next year. The girls who put it on did an amazing job. It was a really fun show, and they had the crop stuff in the middle of the show and the booths all the way around the outside. So it was really fun because you could work a little, shop a little, work a little, shop a little. It was cool. All right. So, if Karen, if you have your Creative Memories punches downstairs, bring them up. Let's see. I'm confused a bit about starting the scrap rack from scratch. Do I load all the empty pages first and then move them as needed? How do I get the full spinder off of the Velcro safely? So, full spinder off of the Velcro safely. Bone folder. You could also use a butter knife. Any kind of blunt edge instrument. Go from the top, go between the 2 layers of Velcro, so the spinder and the base, and just slide that in and crank it up. Do not pull on the rings of your spinder. Not only is it hard on them, but when you pull on them, they'll gap open and your pages will fall out. So put something between the Velcro on the 2, and as you slide it down, that spinder will just pop right off in your hand, right? So something like a bone folder is going to get those off. And then in terms of pages, when you do your sorting, so I'm assuming you're talking about the embellishment sort that we did last week, or stickers or whatever, that's where that step comes into being for sorting by size. So if you have scrap rack pages that are 6x6 pockets and 5x7 pockets and 3x4 pockets, you're going to sort, like these things will fit in a 3x4, these are going to fit in 6x6, these are going to fit in 5x7, and then you're going to load, here, this full page of a 3x4, Trader's 12, right? This full page of 5x7. So you are able to sort of use up full pages rather than have a bunch of different pages scattered through that aren't full, if that makes sense. Now, you probably aren't going to have enough stuff that every page in your scrap rack starts out full. But also remember, let's say you have 2 5x7 St. Patrick's Day stickers, and then you have 2 St. Patrick's Day brads and a St. Patrick's Day ribbon card. Maybe you have shamrock eyelets, I don't know, right? So take the pocket that's biggest, the 5x7, that's going to fit the biggest thing you've got, and put the 5x7 things in, and then put the little things in, 3 or 4 of them into the bigger pockets, and it's fine. You don't have to always put the tiniest, the smallest things in the smallest pocket. One thing about the scrap rack, though, is that you either want things deep enough in the pocket that they don't push out, or you want to make sure that what you have in the pocket comes up above the flap in the pocket, right? Because that's going to keep it in there as well. So there are a couple of videos about loading your pockets and how to load the pockets and tips and tricks. A year ago, excuse me, in April, we did Scrap Rack Month. So if you go to the blog on our website and go back to April of last year, gosh, I think we did a tip a day, like 20 tips, like during the week. And there's all kinds of little different tips in there about all the different ways to everything, from loading your spinders to loading the pages, etc. So that's a great place to start if you're new to the scrap rack. Kathleen says, I have clear stamps that have swirls and other generic designs. What section would that go in? I do not have a lot of stamps, no wood stamps, so I don't know that I need a catalog. If you don't have a lot of stamps, you definitely don't. But something like swirls, right? So if you have a section in your scrap rack or whatever organization tool you're using, it could just be borders, background, like generic shapes, swirls, flourish, and then you could have them together. So these are borders and backgrounds, these are flourishes, these are chevrons, these are circles, these are stars, whatever, all together in one section of your scrap rack. So if you go to my scrap rack and you go to the shapes section, you're going to see generic shapes, squares, rectangles, stars, chevrons, those kind of things. And then that's where you would put things like flourish, swirl, that kind of thing, right? So, and then in your brain to look there, right? Like, okay, I need to put some kind of background, or I want something kind of flourishy or whatever. And when you flip to that section of your scrap rack, you're going to see the either examples, or if it's unmounted and you have those unmounted stamps right in your scrap rack, you're going to see the stamp itself. I hope that makes sense. Donna says, I have most of my paper done. I'm working on stamps and embellishments, but I keep coming across things that still need to be put away. One is vellum. How should this be stored? Vellum is paper, right? Vellum goes wherever, whatever it is. Is it solid colored vellum? It's going to go in your rainbow paper. Is it printed vellum? It's going to go in, is it like a design vellum? Like I have vellum that looks like grass. Well, for me, grass always goes in sports, right? Some people put it in garden. Some people put it in an outdoor. I always think grass is sports. So it's going to go right into my sports section. If you have vellum that has hearts printed all over it, are you keeping hearts as a section within shapes? Or do you keep hearts in Valentine's Day, which is where I keep mine? So it's going to go in one or the other of those places. Now, vellum is a little bit more delicate than your average cardstock. So you may, if you're using a scrap rack, you may want to put it into a supersized single page to protect it. You may want to use a paper pocket if you're using paper storage boxes to protect that. But that paper, that vellum, should be with the rest of your paper. So whether it's rainbow or theme or season, that's where you're going to put it. If you number your stamps, oh no, I already did that one. Yeah. Is that it? Did I get all 3 pages? I think that's it. Woo, we got all 3. All right, so your challenge this week, catalog 20 things a day for the next 7 days, or 140 items over the course of the week. And don't forget to put up your progress posts. and certainly take advantage of whatever reward you've assigned yourself for that particular challenge. I guess that's it, ladies. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Looking forward to reading your progress posts. And again, if you have questions as you go through cataloging, there are a couple of videos on the website and videos on our YouTube channel specifically addressing step by step. There's one where I actually did catalog, I think it was all my wood stamps. It might have been, I might have done one for dies too, where you can literally see the process step by step by step of how I did that, and I just kind of fast forward it as we're going. So if you need more information,